Hi, welcome to the course What to Do Right Now When Someone You Love Becomes Disabled, including yourself. This course is brought to you by Thrive University, an online university of transformation. I'm Chen Jen. I will be your instructor today. I am the founder and CEO of Thrive University and have worked in mental health and as a clinical social worker and private practice counselor my entire life. I've worked with thousands of individuals in crisis situations in their lives, including a few years specifically with senior and disabled persons in agency to help people remain in their home, and live as independently as possible with disabilities. This course is designed specifically for the family and loved ones of someone who has recently become disabled, too impaired, or too chronically ill to either work and or take care of themselves properly. It could also benefit those who see a loved one declining and they're not quite there yet where it's crisis time, but you want to be prepared, and that's a very wise thing to do. Many people would have a much better end to their life if people would notice a little sooner and put a care plan in place before the worst happens. So that's who can benefit from this course. We're offering this course free because we know that when people need help the most is when they cannot afford it or just frankly do not feel good enough to seek that help out. I myself became disabled and unable to work at the age of 45, and my life was drastically changed because of that. So I have also lived this experience. I want to say up front that how you react right now to what is happening with your loved one will determine the quality of the rest of their life. It very well could literally make the difference between this and this. Now, it will help to understand a little bit what is going on inside a person who has just become disabled. Becoming disabled means facing losses in self-sufficiency, financial stability, and social functioning. It can also mean a loss in dignity and self-confidence. It means a loss of a lot of activities and a way of being that the person loved, the very definition often of who they are. To have a positive outcome requires a tremendous amount of support, work, and investment in that person. I hope that you are up to this challenge and that this course will help you with that. So let's get started. Aside from mental confusion, I forgot to mention, lethargy, depression, there's physical symptoms related often to one's disability. Severe pain, loss of memory, mental confusion, extreme exhaustion. For this reason, they may need help physically as well as emotional and mental nudging to get them to seek out the help they need. Now, the first part of that help will include getting a clear diagnosis and as much of a clarity in prognosis as is possible. I'll tell you why later this is so important, but begin immediately to try to enlist the help of an understanding, helpful doctor. If you have a doctor you don't like very well, if your loved one has a doctor they don't like very well, or who is just putting them in a pigeonhole, I advise you to seek another doctor because that is going to be one of your biggest allies in the challenges to come. Another issue that you'll deal with immediately is the issue of denial. It's very hard for any person to accept that they have become permanently disabled, whether it is a sudden onset, such as an accident, or a person aging in place and losing their ability to take care of themselves. No one wants to admit that they can't be self sufficient and that this could be permanent. I suggest that you help a person approach it as saying, hey, let's believe for the best but plan for the worst. Help them to overcome the barrier of denial in whatever way is necessary. Um, as I've mentioned, my way, just believe for the best, but let's plan for the worst, is often a good approach. Now, let's talk about rallying some support. The very first thing you're going to need to do, of course, is to do a needs assessment. Now, if this person has been hospitalized because they were in an accident, because they fell and they broke their hip, um, because they suddenly can't remember things and are showing signs of dementia, whatever it is, you're going to have to figure out right now what they need. But, oh, what I was going to say was, if they have been hospitalized, you're going to have the help of a clinical social worker in the hospital with some of this stuff. If this is not the case, um, then you'll need to figure out some of it yourself. But here are some of the questions that you or a professional needs to ask. Is your loved one still able to physically manage in their current home? Are there barriers such as stairs if they can no longer walk? Can they ambulate through the house, or are there stairs inside the house? Can they go to the restroom by themselves? Do they have access to their tub or shower, or is it something that will be difficult or impossible for them to get in and out of now? Does your loved one have immediate need for home care? Do they need nursing? Do they need supervision? Do they need someone to take care of their medications? Can your loved ones afford food and shelter? If they're losing work income, how will they pay their rent? If you have a clinical social worker involved and this person has been in the hospital, they may be moved temporarily to transitional care facility where they can continue to receive intensive physical therapy or other things they may need. But if they are in the home or they are coming home, all these things will need to be addressed. Look at what they need now immediately in terms of support, in terms of medical structures, in terms of devices, and other things they may need. But also project into the next 2 years, because it takes 2 to 3 years to actually stabilize if you are lucky enough to stabilize. I'll explain that more in a minute. But let's talk first about emotional support. As you begin to approach the situation with your loved one, try to understand all the losses your loved one is experiencing. Understand that the very definition of themselves, whether it's as an athlete, a powerful business person, a mother who's able to take care of little children, or grandmother, whatever the situation, that is being challenged. That sense of self is being challenged deeply right now. Be aware that depression and suicidal thoughts are often present, and do not brush off feelings of sadness and despair, especially not any vocalization of desire to die. And understand also that people do not always need advice. Often they just need to be heard and feel cared for. That's common sense, I know, but it's amazing how many people try to tell someone what they're going to do and what they need. So listen to the person and try to walk that fine line between respecting what they want and helping them to understand what they really need to do right now if they're not moving in that direction. To emotionally support someone, check on them regularly. Give them a call. Text them regularly. If they're on Facebook or other social media, get on it regularly and post something on their site. If you live locally, visit them. Don't let time go by. We are so busy nowadays, we do not realize how much time we let fly by. It can be months between phone calls to our parents, our grandparents. It can be weeks before we check on somebody that we mean to visit while they're sick until they're not even sick anymore. But for the disabled person, they need that help to be present and constant right now. Ask how you can help. Ask what they need. Offer to shop for them or take them shopping. Offer to provide transportation to doctors, therapists, physical therapists, any other thing they may need. Because remember, even if they could physically get out and get in their car and go, they may simply be too exhausted, depressed, and lethargic to do it. Your offer will help rouse them and rally their energy to do the things they need to do to take care of themselves. The whole point is to ensure continuity of life as much as possible. Whatever the people are used to having, whatever a person is accustomed, how they're accustomed to living, try to help them to continue to have that as much as possible. Do they go to church every Sunday? Offer to take them, even if you hate church. Even if you just walk them to the door and get them seated and wait out in the car, if it's that bad, because I know some people really are that opposed to church. But, if your loved one, if that supports them and helps them and inspires them and encourages them, help them to get there. Help them to get to a senior service uh, gathering. Help them to get to, senior support lunch where they can be with other people their age if they are a senior. Help them to get to a disabled support group. Help them to go to their bridge club. Whatever people are accustomed to doing, help them to get back into that. Help them to figure out disabled transportation, whatever else they may need, if you can't be present during the day. Okay, now we are going to talk about financial situation. If a person is not already aging and on Social Security, they are going to have suffered a loss of their income, perhaps a total catastrophic loss. So you are going to need right away to be looking at how is this person going to be able to live? Where is money going to come from? This is where your relationship with your doctor comes in. You are going to need medical documentation that says this person is not able to work for the foreseeable future. Then I recommend you apply for Social Security as quickly as possible. Help your loved one to get the paperwork done and turned in, because this is a very lengthy process. Getting Social Security often involves one, usually two appeals before the third and final decision. Most people take 2 to 3 years to get Social Security. And the only time I've ever seen people get Social Security any quicker is when they have a life threatening illness and the prognosis is that they only have a few months to live. Those are the only times it's really pushed through right away. Was the person a veteran? They may be eligible for veterans benefits. They may have some kind of work pension, disability pension, other pensions. These things need to be checked out immediately and applied for because they all take time. Now, in the process of trying to get these needs taken care of, you're going to need help, really. It's too much for one person to do. I've seen individuals do it, but why not gather family and friends? My recommendation is to create a team approach. Call family and friends and have a meeting. If you have to do it on Skype or some other webinar, workshop, group technology online, get everyone together and discuss all the needs. Put the pieces together, one at a time. Determine who can help with what, who has time available, who is local to the disabled person, who can contribute financially, who can spend time on a regular basis, who can check on them once a week. If no one is around your loved one, I recommend you do everything everything possible, if at all possible, to move them geographically closer to you. Who can help move your loved one? Who's got the financial resources or the time, the physical capability to help with a move? Who has room that the loved one could move into their home if necessary? Does someone have a spare room? Does someone have enough money to temporarily support a person who they care about? These are the kinds of questions that you can hash out with a circle of friends and family so that it's not all on you. The more people that can help, the lighter the load is on everyone. Common sense, I know. But again, I have never seen a family think to have a family meeting and try to divvy up responsibilities and get everyone engaged in helping. This is very important because it also helps all the people in the circle of family and friends understand the seriousness of what is going on and helps them to figure out what they can do. Because often people are concerned, but they don't know what to do. And they ask, what can I do? But they don't get a response. Because quite frankly, someone who's just become disabled doesn't know themselves. They're reeling. And they often don't know what they need to tell someone. And so again, people get busy, they get back to their lives, and that person gets left struggling alone. Don't let that happen. If you care about the person who has become chronically ill or disabled, try to get as much support going out there as possible. If the person does belong to a church or some other strong organization, like they've volunteered for years for a cause, or other networks they're involved in, get those networks involved. A lot of people in those organizations in a church will want to help. You do not have to do everything or be there if you absolutely cannot be. If you take the time initially to get some things going and set up. It's a little bit like, they always say, when a person dies, everyone comes to the funeral and they all say wonderful things about the person they loved. And they wish they would have done this, they wish they would have done that. They wish they would have spent more time with them. They wish they would have visited them more. They wish they would have called them more, stayed in touch more. And people always say they should have a send-off for someone before they die so they can hear all the great things people say and how much everyone really cares about them. The same is true of someone who is becoming disabled. Better for them to actually see up front all the people who really care about them and get all that support coming to them than to get busy and go on with your life and leave that person to struggle and end up in poverty, quite possibly homelessness. So that's what I want to talk about right now. Housing for a disabled person is so imperative, so important. Without housing, a person cannot get the health care they need, such as assistance with bathing or any of the things they need. They are not eligible for food stamps because they have no bills. More importantly, their health will further decline. They will be subjected to temperature extremes, to the elements, to poor nutrition. And it may surprise you to know that disabled people are 5 times more likely to be victims of violent crimes. The elderly and disabled are more frequently attacked, mugged. They are victims of hate crimes. People attack disabled people, and senior and disabled people are abused and sexually assaulted. It may sound and seem like a horrendous thing to you that someone would rape an elderly woman or sexually assault a disabled person. But I went to a special training on just that and learned that it's not uncommon for people to take serious advantage of senior and disabled people. All these things are what this person is open to if their housing is not assured. This picture is so sad and also sweet at the same time. So I put it there because here's a little old lady with a cane sitting on the street, obviously in the cold, the way she's bundled up. And her sign says, "Please help me, I am poor and sick, and I will vote for you." Thank you. I would vote for someone who would help me too. So please consider carefully what is happening with the housing situation and how your loved one is going to be able to continue to be sheltered. Oftentimes, we do not want to be bothered. No one wants to take in the grumpy old great uncle or grandfather or mother we never got along with. We do not want our lifestyle crunched. We are busy. We do not want to be bothered with things. And it is very easy to let someone fall through the cracks. I ask you to please not allow your loved one to fall through the cracks and become another number. So, those are some of the facts. That is why I recommend after you apply for Social Security, veterans benefits, and other forms of income they might be eligible for, apply immediately for Section 8 and senior housing. These are programs that are administered by sometimes the city and always the counties have their own housing. And the wait list for these housing things are so long, really, believe me, 7 years, 10 years. So do not expect that help to come to your rescue immediately. However, get on the list so it is there. Oftentimes, people move, people pass away, and the list gets a lot shorter than it looks. And a person can move up the list. And if you live in a small town, sometimes, oddly, that's more true than in a big city. Some smaller towns have wait lists of just a year or two. So get on the list immediately, and time might fly, and you might find them getting the help they need. Look at individual senior housing. Unfortunately, the situation in a lot of towns is when you contact housing, they will give you a giant list of all the senior and disabled housing that is available at a reduced cost. And it is completely up to you to contact every single one of those places and see if they are taking applications, see how long their list is, and all that. So it can be a lengthy process. And again, if you have got yourself a little care team and have enlisted the help of friends and other family members, you could divide up that list and everybody could make a few calls and make it a lot easier. But it is a big hassle, again, to apply for housing and to get it. So get started on that right away. Now, there's another option, and the person may be sent there depending on their condition from the hospital. But if they are not in the hospital, I want you to be aware of something called assisted living facilities. Now, these are not like nursing homes. Assisted living facilities provide a person with their own room or studio apartment, and they live normally like they would in an apartment, except there is a support staff available. Most assisted living facilities have a cafeteria, they provide 3 meals a day, they have an activities director, and have bingo and other activities, and they have some nursing staff and care staff to assist people to get in and out of their bath, if they need bathing support, to assist people in the morning if they need help dressing, and they have nurses who check on their medications and keep them um, safe and in line in that way with their needs and prescriptions. So check on assisted living facilities. That is another option for living while you are scrambling and trying to figure out what is going on. It is possible that this could be a permanent solution depending on the person's needs and desires. Some people do not want to go to into assisted living facility, and some people get there. I've had clients that took a turn for the worse and absolutely had to move, at least temporarily, to an ALF, and they were so happy there because they were able to make friends and not be isolated. Somebody was cooking their meals for them, and they never wanted to leave, so that became their permanent home. Another thing you can look at is if the person owns their own home. Can you get a second mortgage on the home? Would they be able to get some kind of money out of the house to help them? Now, this is not a very good long-term solution for someone who is never going to work again and will have no way to pay back the mortgage. Of course, for someone younger who may in the future be able to be retrained for new work or with with accommodations return to their work, this may be another way to get by for a while. Another thing you can do if there are another option is take a group collection. Again, call all the family, friends, the people in the church, the people they used to work with, anything it takes, and ask if people can actually provide a tithe every month. If everybody could give 10, 20, $40 a month, and there's 20 or 30 people who care, you may have enough for that person to live on for a while, um, until you find more permanent resolutions for the current crisis, such as the person finally gets Social Security or is able to receive the pension from their work. The amount of waiting time depends on the resources a person has available. It may only take a month or 2 or 3 for a person to get approval to receive an early pension from their job. But again, it could take a couple years to get Social Security. You can even do internet fundraisers, and believe me, a lot of people are doing this today. For senior citizens, they have a really hard time. They don't want people to make a fuss over them, or they don't want people to know their business, and they're not accustomed to the way that people are doing things today. But there are really many people doing internet fundraisers now for equipment they need, to build a house, um, to pay their rent, to pay their medical bills. My son and daughter-in-law had their first child a couple years ago, and their insurance was about $5,000 short of everything they needed uh, for her birth because she had to have surgery for the birth. And they were able to pay for most of it, but they did a fundraiser online for the last $5,000 and they got it. So you can look at things like GoFundMe, Fundly, YouCaring, CrowdRise. There's a big list of them. Do a Google search for internet fundraising sites and you'll find them. And again, if you're doing this, don't forget to rally support. Does someone you know have great writing skills, web building skills, sales copy experience? Have them help you do that. Have them help you write have them write a convincing page for GoFundMe, so that people will be moved and touched and want to help. Now, this person, maybe your loved one already has medical insurance, and maybe it was through a job or some other situation that's going to end now that they have become disabled. Um, and sooner or later, they're going to need some other medical coverage. So they're going to have to look into Medicaid and other assistance programs. You can find providers of Medicaid and other federally funded and county and state programs by looking for, they go under so many different names, but here are some of them: Department of Human Services, Department of Social Welfare, Department of Social Services, Department of Economic Security, that's in Arizona, Area Agency on Aging. Many states have something similar to that. Area Agency on Aging. So look up agencies on aging. These agencies are often responsible for putting caregivers in place. If the person's extremely ill, they may be eligible for hospice. I should have put that on the list. And hospice can also be funded by Medicaid. All these services can be funded by Medicaid. Now, if you're going to apply for Medicaid or other government services and benefits, you're going to have to know some things. First of all, you're going to have to provide to the Social Services Agency a lot of information and documentation. And they are going to look at all the resources the person has to determine eligibility. Now, here is what you want to know right away. Generally, a person is allowed to have $2,000 in cash, and anything that can be converted to cash would be considered the same, such as stocks, an insurance policy that can be converted to cash, anything like that, stocks and bonds. And they are allowed to have up to $3,000 in other assets. About. I'm giving you an ish, because it differs from place to place, but these are general guidelines. Anything over that is considered resources that make a person ineligible, because the state obviously does not want to support a person until they have exhausted their own resources. So they will expect you to sell your stocks and bonds, to sell any vehicles, any RV, recreational vehicles, boats, other things that you have, burial plans, insurance plans, other land. All of these things are accessible to a person to assist them with their needs. And they do expect you to sell these things and use those resources. If you do not want to sell these things, either because you want to continue to use it in some way, maybe the disabled person really wants to continue to travel in the future when things get better a little bit, in their RV, and they don't want to give that up. Well, I'm going to tell you something a social worker is not allowed to tell you, and that is, don't wait until the crisis is upon you to deal with these assets. What I recommend that you do, especially if the person you're trying to look at, your mother, your grandmother, your elderly loved ones who are slowly declining and haven't hit crisis mode yet, transfer the resources now. I recommend that a person sign their home over to their son or daughter, sell their vehicles, sell them, but sell them for only $5. So um, they no longer have the title to any of those things in their names. And when they are asked on an application, have you recently sold any vehicles or whatever, and they can put yes, and they can put they only got $100 for it. So that is the only amount of money that the agency is able to legally uh, expect you to have from that sale. Now, however, if you're doing this after the person has already had an accident and is in crisis mode and right this minute has to apply, obviously this won't work because they are aware they're not going to let you hide resources, so they are aware that people will try to do that, and it will count. Any resources that you sell must be, depending on the agency, 6 months to up to a year before you apply for services. So the best thing you can do to help your loved one, the best thing they can do to help themselves financially, is sell every single thing you can get money out of, every single thing, and use that money for everything you really want and need. If you only have a few more house payments left, pay off your house. Get rid of all of your recreational vehicles, your car, everything you can, spare cars. Have a giant garage sale and sell all that furniture no one ever uses, everything. And pay off everything that you can that will secure the person's housing. Okay? Unless this situation is that you don't think that person is ever going to be able to live at home again. That's if a person has a home. If they're living in an apartment, paying 1 or 2 more months rent, that's okay, that's a good thing. But then not having any of your assets ever again to use, I don't know, that's kind of a bummer. But these are decisions that have to be made. These are the things I'm simply trying to help you know, the things you need to be thinking about. The best thing to do is, as early as possible, transfer and sell all of your resources. The family home is usually the big thing. People don't want to lose their home. And what will happen if you don't sign it over, if it's not signed over to a loved one, um, at the time of application for Medicaid, when the Medicaid starts paying for everything for that person, when they pass away, um, the state has a right to that property to pay themselves back. So you will lose that resource from the family. If you want to keep it in the family, it's best that it be in someone else's name. So let's see what else we need to talk about here. Okay, looking towards the future. I know I'm painting a pretty grim picture in some ways, and I'm doing it on purpose because intentionally, because I really want to help you understand this is very grim business. This person's life has been shattered, and how the rest of their life goes depends on what happens right now. But it's not all grim. After the emergent needs for food, shelter, and care are met, new things can happen, new life can happen. First, I want to urge you to continue to provide emotional support and help. Continue adjusting as the needs change. Continue to discuss with your care team the needs of the person and assure that someone is always stepping up to help them get to appointments to do things they need to do. Move towards going into what I call advanced help, looking at what additional equipment can the person use. What are they eligible for, perhaps prostheses to help them have more ambulation? Can they get additional equipment that insurance won't pay for, the state won't pay for, such as a motorized cart? There was a picture back a little ways. Oh, maybe we haven't gotten there yet. There's a picture in here of a woman tootling around in a national park on an electrical cart. These things make all the difference in the world between what kind of life a person has. But you may need to do a fundraiser to get a cart because you may not be able to get that on insurance. Adaptive therapies to teach a person new skills using devices, prostheses, and things. Help the person join meetup.com disabled groups or other disabled support groups, disabled sports teams. Uh, Start helping them to look at how they're going to start getting out and having a social life again, having physical recreation, even though what they can do with their body may have changed. Consult vocational rehabilitation or the Veterans Administration for vocational retraining. Often, the vocational rehabilitation services will completely pay for a person to go back to school or some other kind of training program to learn something totally new that they can do with their current limitations or different abilities. I know there are disabled people out there who hate that term and they prefer to be called differently abled. Now, I don't want to say something is politically correct or not because it's a matter of perspective. People who like the term differently abled are people who have gotten to this point here. They've managed to come out of a tailspin and they have been able to get work, to have a social group. They have created a life that they are happy with. And that does not happen for about 80% of disabled people never reach happy. I'm very sorry to tell you that. It makes me extremely sad, but most people do not get the help and support they need to get out of that tailspin and get out of that crisis mode and go on to a new life. This person here has a job and is doing something with their life. And these people, they like to be called differently abled because they feel empowered. They feel able to do things, but they are doing them in different ways now. But you have to understand, for a lot of people, they do feel disabled. They feel they are disempowered. They feel they do not have the power. They do not know how to go on with their lives. Um, so these are suggestions how you can help the person get there. Vocational rehabilitation can be a great help, and Veterans Administration does some of that too for vets. So, the good news is, with love, attention, and the proper support, even the most seemingly disabled person can be brought back to leading a happy, though different life. And I have included some very hopeful, happy pictures here. We have a racer racing with arm power, a man who is fishing and has caught a good one there in his lap. And this is no doubt a hobby he had before he had to be in a wheelchair. With love and support, people are able to continue their interests, though they may have to adapt them, such as cycling with one's arms instead of legs. And there's the picture of the gal with the cart, the motorized cart in the park, going somewhere clearly not designed for disabled people, but she is able to be out in the wilderness, out in nature, something she no doubt enjoys a great deal. So you can see how people are able to continue with their passions and interests with the right support and devices and therapy and other things that they need. Now, this is true even for the person who is homebound or bedbound and has heavy care needs and cannot do much for themselves. So I've included this section because it is very important to take a look at a person's needs if they are going to be home all the time. What I see happens sometimes is that a person is stuck back in their bedroom and the family runs around going on with their lives, busy with their own activities, and does not realize the person never even gets visited or spoken to. In fact, protective services are sometimes called in because people forget to even see if they need food or water. Believe it or not, yes, people get so busy with their own lives, they forget there is a disabled person in the back room. So, one of the things that is often done is that the person's uh, hospital bed is put in the living room, and the living room is rearranged to accommodate them being there, and the person is in the midst of the activities of the household, watching TV with the household, uh, visiting with the other visitors that come to the home, along with the rest of the family, and they are not left out. Now, some people will not like this because they, due to maybe their needs, maybe they're very tired a lot, maybe they're in pain a lot, and they would prefer more quiet and more privacy. If this is the case and they opt to be in their own room, it is very important that that doesn't end up being a prison rather than a sanctuary. Make sure the room is arranged in such a way that there are other chairs available and a television available for visitors, and that the family can also visit in that room, watch movies together, friends can come and hang out in their room, and that there is a place for them to continue to have activities with their family. Also, be sure that everything they want and need is within arm's reach, and for things that they can lift, that lightweight things perhaps, that can be a little further away, make sure they have a handy dandy grabber. That is a little piece of equipment that allows people to extend their reach. Often people who can't bend over and they drop things, but it's also great for people bedbound to reach a little further and grab things they want. So make sure a person has a handy dandy grabber. Now, I'd like to call attention to the picture on the left, which is a woman in a phenomenal piece of equipment, which I am sorry to say I have forgotten the name of at the moment. Um, this handy dandy cart raises, tips, does a number of things. It can raise a person to the level of a bed so they can transfer themselves. It can raise them down to the level of a toilet so they can transfer into a toilet, or a transfer bath seat. And it can tip different ways for comfort for what the person needs for their pain and relieving their pain and having more comfort. So these are just examples of the difference that equipment and thoughtful placement of a person and their things can make towards a person having a much, much better life if they are in the home and are pretty much limited to the home. It doesn't have to be the end of life if the family and friends remember to gather around them and not exclude them, thinking, oh, they're okay back there, they're just resting. People don't want to rest all the time. They do want love and attention, so don't forget to include them. But while we're on the subject of how to help your family and friends be and have a better life, don't forget about technology. If your loved one does not have a laptop, a tablet, or at least a smartphone, buy them one and get them a data, some data. Get on there with them on Skype. Get on there with them regularly on Facebook. Call them regularly. Send them videos of their grandkids growing up, playing, doing cute things. Stay in touch with technology. We have so much technology today, and yet senior and disabled people sit alone day after day with no contact, and there is really no excuse for that today. So if you can't afford to do this for your loved one, take up a collection. It's not that much, and it will change their life to be in touch with you regularly. Another thing to consider is a pet. If the person already has a pet, I do recommend you do everything possible to help them to keep that pet. Don't tell them, oh, you can come live with me, but doggy can't. because that pet will help that person emotionally more than perhaps anything else. Pets serve many healthy functions, even help lower people's blood pressure, help them release healthy hormones, many different things, and help them be happy and have more fun in life. If they don't have a pet, try taking one around occasionally and, feel them out and ask them if they would like one. Of course, they have to have a stable situation at that point to be able to feed and care for the pet. But a very important consideration is pets and technology. So there you have it. So I'm going to ask you one last time to please remember providing the proper support initially is the most crucial element in helping a disabled or chronically ill person adapt and resume a quality of life worth living. Attention to a person's basic needs, their food and shelter, their care needs, and their emotional needs early on will prevent future catastrophe, such as declining health, uh, accidents and further injuries, starvation, and homelessness, and will enable that person to build a satisfying and fulfilling life and make the difference between the sad picture down here on the left of the man all alone or the family on the right. A bedridden woman on oxygen with her family around her and everyone smiling. You know why? Because they're family and they have each other. And that is so very, very important to the senior and disabled person to have the feeling that they belong somewhere. So here's our review. Provide constant emotional support. You don't have to do it all alone. Just make sure there's always someone that's checking on that person, visiting, talking to them, and listening to them. Care for their physical safety and shelter first. Figure out how you're going to do that. Apply for all applicable services and benefits immediately because these things take time. Do everything you can to protect the person's assets and liquidate everything you can to get that person what they need up front. Get them things you know insurance will pay for, like fancy electrical carts. Create a conscious support system that people are aware and involved and not just running on with their lives while this person falls through the crack. And plan for the long haul to prevent downhill slide. Thank you so much for taking this free course from Thrive University. We wish you success on your journey and hope this course has been of some help to you during a challenging time in your life and that of your loved ones. If this course has been useful to you, we would really appreciate an online review and some feedback. And of course, if you have additional questions or we can be of help in any way, please feel free to contact us at thriveuniv@gmail.com right there. Wish you the very, very best. Many blessings to you and good luck in the future.